Welcome to our first webinar. In this first edition, we'll be delving into the intricacies of divorce without fighting. Join us to learn how the collaborative divorce process can help you and your family without sacrifices. Are you a professional navigating divorce but worried about privacy, costs, and family harmony? Traditional litigation often intensifies conflict and exposes personal details. Collaborative divorce offers a smarter, more respectful approach tailored for high-income professionals. Protect your privacy, preserve assets, and prioritize family relationships without the courtroom drama. Discover how this modern solution streamlines the process, minimizes emotional harm, and keeps you in control of the outcome. Ready to take the next step toward a dignified resolution?
All right, great. So you're in the right place again tonight's webinar series. It's going to be the first in a series of webinars on collaborative divorce, the smarter, calmer way to separate. And again, I welcome you all today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for signing up. I appreciate you willing to learn a little bit more about something that I truly enjoy providing a service to people. So, a little bit about me. My name is Cherise Williams, and I am the principal attorney and owner of the law office of Cherise L. Williams. I'm licensed in Maryland and the District of Columbia, and I do practice divorce and family law. I do collaborative, which is one of the processes which we're going to be talking about tonight. And I also can do unbundled services. So there's a wraparound service that you can learn more about if you were to reach out to my office. If you want to reach out, you can call our office. We're located again in Rockville, Maryland. And I practice in the following counties. I practice in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Howard County, Charles County, Anne Arundel County in Maryland, and I'm also in Washington, D.C. So now that we got started, let's just get this out of the way. Although I am a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, so at least not yet. Even though I have having this nice intimate chat with you, if you want to contact my office to get further knowledge about what services we have to offer and set yourself up in an appointment, please do so. And I have to emphasize that point that this webinar is for educational purposes only. It's not legal advice, and it doesn't create an attorney-client relationship. So if you are interested in those personalized service, you have to call our office once again. As far as housekeeping, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that tonight's presentation, I'm going to kind of do it in a format where I talk for about 20 minutes about the collaborative process and how it works. And then I can save some time at the end, about 10 minutes or so, to answer any questions. For those who submitted questions in advance, thank you. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll be able to look those over and answer them just so that I can get through some of the points that I think is very important for you all to hear. And I also will, for those who are able to stay to the end, there is going to be a bonus guide about the collaborative guide roadmap to kind of give you an indication of things that I talked about today. So I want everyone to grab your coffee, tea. Hey, it's late, so you may even have a sparkling beverage or something hard, whatever makes you relax, but still able to listen and understand. And we can start diving into why we're here tonight. So, what is the collaborative divorce and why do I say it's a smarter and calmer process? So we've covered some serious stuff, some housekeeping, but let's talk about it. Because here's the thing, divorce doesn't have to be something that's courtroom drama, doesn't have to be something that would be worthy of being on primetime TV. It is something that is collaborative, is something designed to keep you and your family detail problems out of court and away from the stress and focus on solutions. And that's kind of why I call it a better approach to divorce. So it's something that is related to decision making. It's a process that's designed to help people focus on reaching an agreement. It's a way to separate that keeps your family matters private, it manages your emotions with respect, and entails negotiations outside of court. That's right, you won't have to sit in front of a judge spilling all of your personal emotions and business in an open court. And you don't have to wait up to a year in cases when you have children for your next date of for court and to get a finalized answer from the court. Here you have your privacy. Let's start there. That's what makes this a little different from litigation. The main process for negotiating and exchanging information is done in the meetings outside of courts. So everything is done in a team process, and you get to keep like the exchanges that go on in a litigated divorce. I've been doing this for a very long time, 21 years, in fact. And a lot of information gets passed back and forth outside of court when you do litigation. And a lot of information that can be personal, private, embarrassing, you name it. So in this process, you do exchange information, but you can tailor it to what is needed. And it won't be in a courtroom. It'll be between the parties and the lawyers and the team. So you have control and privacy in that way. You also get to make the decisions. Wouldn't you like to keep decision making within your own family? So in this process, you all will be the ones to make the decision for your case when it comes to your property, your children, how you separate, when you separate, and how you're going to lead into your new separated lives. Instead of the judge being the one to look at everything, hear it all, see who made the better presentation that day in court, because let's face it, a lot of it is just that, and you'll be the one. And so that gives you the control that you should want to have with your own family. It also is respectful because this is a solution oriented process. You get to set your goals, you get check ins, you get allowances to check in for your progress, you get to make those decisions, like I mentioned before. And you also, if somebody wasn't being heard in their marriage, that often is the case. This process allows for the voices to be heard. There's a method that is utilized that is very friendly and allows the comfort and open openness that it allows people who are sometimes more closed off to be able to speak. The idea and fact that you can focus on long-term solutions is a positive. You don't have to just focus on the short-term battles. A lot of us take positions in litigation, and you're not really looking at the goals that you want to set for yourself. So, for example, if I say, I want the house, that's a position that you're taking. But if you say, hey, I really love to have this house because I think my kids and I will be safe and comfortable in this neighborhood. I don't really know that we can find another place that we can afford. That is the actual goal that you have. So there's just a way of looking at this in the collaborative process that is often lost in litigation. You also reduce your conflict because the communication we're very mindful of how you communicate. Now, it's not to say that this is all peaches and cream and everyone's kumbaya, but there's stuff that is done and built in to make sure that people are not going to overtalk, disrespect, or again, not get their point across. So it reduces the conflict in actuality and takes some of the stress out of what people feel often when they're going to court. And you also, most importantly, get to decide on those customized solutions that you want for your family. So once you set those goals and we're able to process the goals and the options, you get to customize those solutions. So why would that matter to you? Think about it. Collaborative divorce will save you time, which I mentioned, stress and emotional energy that court often brings. And it's court is very unpredictable. And so this process allows you to avoid that unpredictability and focus on building a positive future for you and your family. So, yeah, there's a lot to say that is great about what collaborative divorce is and why it's smarter and calmer. So now we want to look at a little more about how you go about divorce. So what are those steps that you need to take when doing the collaborative divorce process? So one, and you're looking at an attorney who is trained in collaborative. So step one is hiring a lawyer who is a collaboratively trained lawyer. And you want to ask, why is that important? Because lawyers that are trained in collaborative, they know the process and they won't accidentally drag you into the courtroom because they don't know any better. This is something that we've taken time out of our law career, and we've decided that this is important because we know the benefits to not only ourselves as practitioners, but to the client, which is the most important aspect. So you were trained, and so you and your spouse will have to have a collaborative lawyer, right? And so if you talk to your lawyer, one party gets the collaborative lawyer, we will generally refer the other spouse to another collaborative lawyer. And that's what makes this process unique because the lawyers, we know one another, small community in the Maryland DMV area. And so we will generally know the people that are trained in collaborative. And so that will allow us to identify other lawyers that will make it easy for you and your spouse to engage in this process. Because remember, with collaborative, we are not against one another. That's what differentiates this process from litigation. So I take off my litigation hat and I'm putting on my collaborative hat. And we mean that when we say that word. So now we're looking at how do we work together to solve the issues and the problems that this family deems to be their goals and objectives for the future. Okay. So once you have identified that other collaborative lawyer and you've hired your collaborative lawyer, that's the beginning of what we create as a team for collaborative. So that goes to the next step. Well, part of the next step. Well, once we have the other lawyer, we agree to collaborative process. So now that you have your lawyer, they're hired. Now you have to agree to do this process. So how do you do that? So there's something that is involved in the collaborative process called an agreement to collaborate. And so that agreement is essentially going to be considered a contract where everyone is going to agree to engage in this process. This is a voluntary process, but when you commit to it, it is truly a commitment. So once you agree to collaborate and you sign this agreement to collaborate, then you're going to want to have that in writing. And everyone's going to pledge to stay out of court, one. You're going to promise to be open, honest, and transparent. That is very important in this collaborative divorce because, again, we're not trying to strategically plan to one up the other person, which is often done in litigation. So, honesty, transparency is one of the at key parts of collaborative. And so information is not used against the other person. And so that we find to can be very emotionally healing for people when they go through the divorce process. Because often, if you're in litigation, you don't get to talk about why, the what's, and you're just trying to figure out your strategic position. And often your lawyer will tell you not to say certain things to your spouse, even if they want you to, even if you want to. So this allows for those dialogues and communication to break through some of the trauma and or hurt and pain that comes with divorce. The agreement also it makes it so that if someone does choose to go outside of the parameters of the agreement and go rogue, as we say, and decides, hey, I'm going to go file in court anyway. Now, if someone does do that, that then pretty much invalidates the collaborative process. So unfortunately, that will create a scenario where you have to then dissolve the collaborative. We all get fired. Myself, the lawyer, and any other team members assigned to your case, we will all be fired, and you and your spouse will have to start all over. So the money you invested in this process will then have to go to totally new attorneys to go to court and do whatever your spouse thinks should be done in court. So this doesn't happen very often in collaborative. I will say there's a very high success rate, but if in fact it does happen, yes, you will lose the lawyers involved that you originally signed up to collaborate with. So it is very important and this matters because this creates a situation where people are committed to the process and they're committed to making it work. So no court threats are going to hang over your head. You don't have to worry about if you say something the wrong way that it's going to be used against you. And this again is one of the great things that I like about this process that allows everyone to stay focused, to cooperate and find solutions. Okay, so step 3, you are going to build your collaborative team. So what does that look like? You've already talked about, Miss Williams, that I'm a collaborative lawyer. You've hired me and my spouse. They've hired a collaborative lawyer. So what team are we referring to? So that's another unique part of this collaborative process. Now, as a lawyer, I'm trained in legal statutes, laws, codes that pertain to the rights and responsibilities that you have to uphold in divorce. And of course, we know divorce is a lot more than that. Divorce entails an emotional aspect, divorce entails a legal aspect, and divorce can also, um, it also can deal with financial, your property, your finances, the things that are tangible and intangible. So in looking at that, we look at each case uniquely and we determine which team members would benefit this case. So, under the law, you have to separate what's called marital property. So, in those instances, that can include your bank accounts, your retirement, your homes, anything you have a value, could be a collection. So, these are finances essentially and real property. So, we will hire a financial person who will be considered a neutral party who can help us look at all of this stuff. Someone who's actually spent their education and training looking at this stuff as their daily work. That's who really needs to be involved. And that's who we can get to join the team if appropriate. So, looking at a financial expert is one of the possible team members that can join the collaborative process to help us get to a place where you guys can discuss how to separate your assets and things that are going to be um, divided how you see fit for your family. So that's an important possible team member, a financial expert. So then we look at the emotional aspect. So some people are ready to go and they're the ones who initiate the divorce process. Then you have some spouses who are not really, so they're surprised it was even said. They really don't want it. This is a struggle for them emotionally. And so we often will have what's considered a mental health or a coach. Now, the mental health coach is important, although a lot of people feel like I wouldn't open up to a stranger. I don't believe in that. But in reality, this is very helpful. I found with cases where we're trying to counsel attorney as an attorney, my client, and they're stuck emotionally. And as a lawyer, I'm trying to get through the legal parts and what their rights and responsibilities are. And they just won't budge because they're taking, again, a position. I want that house. They're not actually looking at the realities of the situation. So mental health coaches can get people to understand where they are emotionally, not saying that you're right or wrong, but just working with you where you are to try to get you through this process. And it's very helpful to have those check-ins. And you and your spouse can have the same person, or sometimes each person will have their own. It just depends on how the team approach. We look at each individual case individually again. Now, this person is not your therapist, so I'd always recommend if you're going through divorce, it's probably a good idea to have some form of therapy for yourself so that you can check in and really deal with anything that needs to be dealt with. This person will just be for collaborative in this process, not a weekly therapy type of situation. So that's important to know. Another person that could be a central team member is a child specialist. And with the child specialist, you're in a position with a child specialist where if you have children, which this is a child centered approach, and one of the many benefits of doing this is to help you get through this process and not harm your children emotionally. And a lot of people harm their kids emotionally just because they're going back and forth. Kids see the transition, the frustration, and they often will absorb that. So, at least with the child specialist, they can help us with the custody, help with the planning, help you talk to your kids about telling them in the appropriate appropriate manner that you're even getting a divorce, right? And how what it looks like in if you have separate households, you and your spouse. So this is important that you have someone who can you can check in when there's also people that are very weird, nervous about someone taking on responsibilities for the kids that they may not have taken on during the marriage. And that's okay. You know, sometimes you need to have that independent time, but you can talk through all of those things and be honest. You may never have expressed that to your partner in the marriage, but now is the time to have those conversations. So building your team and looking at what's important, it may sound like a lot, it may sound like it's super expensive, but actually having these processes and having these team members in the upfront actually will help you in the long run because it shortens the time and it sets up stability where you may not have had it before. So let's move on to step 4, negotiations. Negotiations are the key component of divorce. So once you have your attorneys, you have the team, now you're going to negotiate the settlement, which is important. So the goals and all of the options we laid out, we're going to try to negotiate as a collaborative team to figure out what is going to be best to put in writing, what is going to be best to put in your agreement. And once we've done that, then great, hurrah, we've gotten to a great place in our collaborative negotiations. We've gotten to a place where you now have the agreement that you need to make your case an uncontested divorce. So we then are able to finalize and we can submit that agreement because you're going to execute it, you're going to sign off on it, and that is what becomes your legally binding contract. You're going to do this all in a calm environment, and everyone's going to be in a place where they're going to feel like, okay, my input was used to make this final agreement. So having this negotiation, having this calming, open dialogue kind of method allows people to have an agreement that they probably will be able to utilize into the future. Not probably, they will be able to utilize into the future. And so that is what you will use in the end to be able to take to the courthouse, and your attorneys will then be able to submit with the uncontested divorce um, claim or complaint, I should say, and that will get you into the uncontested, short 10-minute, 10-15 minute divorce hearing. So that's when we say out of court, everything's done out of court. So the court really has nothing to decide or very little to decide other than approving it, signing off on it, and making sure everyone is in actual agreement with that process. So that is basically the steps that are important. So just to recap very quickly, this process is done mainly out of court, which will save you time and money. It also will protect your privacy, so keep your matters personal. It'll empower you because you get to shape and decide the outcome. You get to also focus on your children. So prioritizing their needs and their well-being, I'm sure is going to be of utmost importance to you. So allowing you all to teamwork just so that they don't see all of the long, drawn out process of court thing, a court process will, essentially involve you in is something that is best for the children and preserving your relationship. Just because you're divorcing, you will have to deal with each other outside of court. And so outside of the marriage. So you're going to want to foster cooperation and respect. And even if you don't have children, you still may have to deal with properties together. You still may have to deal with something together, or you just may see them out in the future. So you can leave feeling better about what happened when you ended your marriage. So benefit, dignity, respect, and less stress. Who doesn't want that? I mean, this is part of why I have been an advocate for this, and I want to put my face out there so that I can show people that there is a better way to do this. So that's kind of where we are. So for those who have stuck around, I see that we have a few questions. This is the period where I'm going to try to get to some questions that I think might be important to answer for people that are participating here tonight. Okay, let me check. Okay. So I have one question here. Somebody wants to know, so What if I do not want to include team members? Like, let's say I don't want a financial specialist in my collaborative process. Is that allowed? So that is a great question. So let's talk about this. So since this process is kind of um, set up by the parties, we will take a holistic look at your situation and your finances. So there are situations where we are flexible and there's a team member that may not need to be in this process, and it's more straightforward that the parties can do themselves. So yes, there are situations where a financial expert may not be the most important, especially if there are considerations in trying to save money. So, yes, there are situations where you can make a choice. And if everyone thinks that that's going to benefit the family and things are pretty straightforward, why not? You certainly can decide that a team member, like a financial expert, is not necessary. So, yeah, that's a very good question. So, thank you for that one. Okay, see here. All right. So it looks like another question we have is, can we modify our agreement later if something changes? Wow, I really like this one because so often, we try to do our best to make these agreements or something that will be usable in the future and that will have long-term impact. That's always our goal. But things change, families change, situations change. So, generally speaking, in most agreements, there's already going to be a clause that if the parties agree, they can modify their own agreement, right? In writing. So that is something that sometimes you don't even need to come back to your lawyers to do something like that. You can modify it and you guys put it in writing, you sign it. Hey, that's your new agreement for the time being. But let's just say this is something that's a little harder, a conversation that just isn't okay. We both see it the same way at first, or our goals, because you may take that position again, like I talked about before, and not look at your goal in the case. So if you need the support of the collaborative team, 100%, you can reach back out to the lawyer that you were, working with, and when you first came up with the agreement, and your spouse can contact their attorney. We can revisit this team. That's the beauty of this. And yes, you will have the luxury and benefit where you may have to have a meeting or two, talk it out. You'll do a modified version of this process. Of course, it wouldn't be the need for the same type of process that we had the first time around, but certainly we can utilize the same style to benefit you and your family in order to modify any agreements that you think would not, to get whatever you needed to modify in your own agreement. So that is a very, very good question. Okay, let me look here. So someone else had a question that asks, can collaborative divorce be used for high conflict um divorce cases? Now, that is a great question because some people might think, oh man, we have to already get along so well and be in a good place to use this process. No, 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 no. Yes, this is something that can be utilized for high conflict divorce. Conflict divorce, the thing that is required for collaborative, I say, is that you have an open mind and that you see the benefit of talking and and you're willing to have the conversation, because ultimately high conflict can still be present, and this process is designed to work through that high conflict. So yes, high conflict cases are often utilized, but again, you need to be open minded. Now if there's some type of domestic violence, we just got to talk about the hard stuff in your marriage. There are some cases that would not be appropriate if there's some significant substance abuse where a party is not able to attend, participate, make reasonable decisions. Then there are cases that this would not be appropriate to have them try to sit down and engage in this process. But normally, yes. So we do some sort of screening in the beginning when we're looking at potential collaborative candidates. But other than that, yes, we are designed and ready, willing and able to work with families who are high conflict. So that really is a good question and is why we do this. So People would think collaborative may be easy just because it's not going to court, but it's total opposite. There's a lot of work that can go into managing conflict. And anyone who does conflict resolution, they will know how that is a skill set of its own that needs to be taught more to all of us. So why not? Um, so someone else had a question about whether collaborative can address spousal support. Yes, in that marriage separation agreement or marital separation agreement, people call it different things. I just want to emphasize that that alone does not divorce you. But the in that agreement, it is a comprehensive agreement that will entail if you need to have spousal support in your marriage and that's something that's on the table, that is something that will be discussed as one of the goals that is possible to be put into the collaborative divorce agreement. So yes, you certainly can discuss and talk about spousal support in this process. So that's also a good question. One last question because I know we're getting shorter on time. Someone wants to know, if we don't live in this same area, can we still use collaborative divorce? The question to that is yes. So now, with the beauty of with collaborative, you really can be anywhere. But obviously in the end, you're gonna have to file the case in one jurisdiction. So someone would have to live, for me to represent them, the case, someone would have to live in Maryland and DC. So, but if the other spouse does not, that's okay. And you can basically do collaborative. We could do virtual because a lot of stuff is virtual now, and we could have our meetings that way because it's a series of meetings. So yes, you can negotiate, come up with your solution, and do it collaborative style, and the other person could still be somewhere else. So yeah, that's a good question. Okay. Doesn't appear right now that there are any other questions. So again, this is something that I think is a great starting point for the collaborative, and I'm sorry, for the divorce and family law, which includes collaborative for me, webinar series. This is something that I wanted to come out at the beginning of the year to talk about so that people have the they will get to know my firm and get to know a little bit more about this process. Educating the public is the first thing because a lot of people don't know what it is. So the more, if you've heard this word but didn't know what it is, hopefully this gave you some inspiration, and tell other people because that's how the word is spread. A lot of people in the community don't know what collaborative is. They've only heard about litigation, they've heard mediation, but they don't have any idea what collaborative process is. So I would love for people to be more educated and take a chance so that this method is one that's used instead of just going before a judge and hoping that the judge will do right by you. So let's look at conflict in a different way this year. And if you again have more questions, you want to get divorced and you think you're ready, and you want to try this process, please call my office again. The number is on this last slide, and you'll learn about it. And well, you won't learn about it just by calling, but you can set up to schedule a call with someone to then schedule a call with me. So we'll be more than happy to work with you. So again, you can find me on YouTube at 50 Shades of Law. So if you would follow me, this video will be put up on YouTube, so give me about a week or so just to get everything situated. But if you missed the beginning and you want to see it from the beginning, then you can certainly go there. And my Facebook is also 50 Shades of Law, spelled FIFTY, Shades, SHADESOF, Law. So that's where you can follow me on social media. I appreciate your support. And I also just want to let you know, when you comes to our law firm, you become a member of the Williams Law Firm family. Here, you're not just another case number, and we definitely use our expertise to kind of meet all of your evolving needs. So, thank you for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.